Hello everyone, it's good to be here. I wanted to talk to you guys about a book that was quite influential in my life. The book is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It was written by Stephen Covey, and Stephen Covey had to do some research on a lot of the success literature that had been written in about a 200-year period. And what he did is he kind of gleaned from all of them, what useful bits did they have that could be implemented. And when doing that, he realized that they had some common ground. And it was analyzing such common ground that he was able to define what he called the 7 habits of highly effective people. And so I do want to spend some time talking about each of the habits in the future. But for now, I wanted to give you an overview of these habits, which were for me so impacting. I first read the book in '94. It was incredibly impacting, and a lot of my initial coaching was based on or was actually tightened using the teachings that he exposes as to how to be effective. I did a lot of coaching initially on time management, but then there are so many applications to it that to me it was a little bit sad watching this book and a lot of talk about the first habit being degraded in a lot of the corporate world, as I saw in my days when I was in the banking industry. So let me tell you what the 7 habits are and a brief overview. So number 1 is be proactive. And really the meaning of this habit was that we could choose our emotional response instead of just reacting to what happens in our life. And that was the original meaning. So if you've heard, come on, be proactive, you got to get those sales. A good line you can use back is to your boss is, well, you have to be proactive in choosing your emotional response if I don't meet the sales this quarter. I'm all for setting goals and just not for distorting the way people should react when these aren't set, especially if they're working for us. So being proactive, that was the first one. The second habit is begin with the end in mind. And what this really taught is that for you to be able to achieve something, you have to have a lot of clarity about what is it you want to be, your end result. And really this applies in business, but it also applies in personal relationships, in your family, your marriage, with your children, with your friends. If you have clarity about your end result, you are more likely to exercise control, healthy control of your actions, as opposed to just reacting again. Habit number 3 is put first things first. And it was great for me to learn how often the enemy of the best is the good. Because it's hard to prioritize, isn't it, when you have a lot of things in your plate. And so the challenge is to be able to establish what is the most important thing that I have to do right now. Habit 4 is an interesting one. Think, win/win. So think, win. And it talks about why it's so important that you kind of really set yourself up to help other people win and yourself. And so it doesn't have to be the other person wins, I lose, or I win, but the other person loses. But it's so much more effective to think win-win. Habit 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. And it shows the value of taking your time in ensuring we really understand the other person's world. And for those who follow my work as a Tony Robbins methodology trained coach, you know about the 7 master steps and how important that is. So seeking to understand the other person's world. But the other component of that is quite important too. You really need to ensure that you are understood. And that's not for vindication, but that is for clarity in communication. Habit 6 is to synergize or synergize. So it's how to combine resources to get a result that is greater than the sum of the individual parts. And habit number 7, sharpen the saw. And that's about maintenance, how we can continue to achieve in a sustainable way what we do. So I will talk in future individually about each of these 7 habits. But for now, you've got a good overview, and I definitely recommend the book, also available in audio, in other formats too. Just really, you have to take some time with this book. You know, I read it 3 times before I started implementing. Now I'm a bit slow, so you might not need that, but I really wanted to get clarity. Then I wanted to study this book, and later I realized I wanted to implement it to the best of my abilities. So we'll talk more in future about each of these 7 habits.